time with me here this afternoon on Good Friday, no less. I certainly appreciate that. Again, my name is Paul Webb, and I'm one of the regional training and consulting partners here with ProQuest. We're going to take a little bit of time, just in terms of time frame, just to give you an approximation. I anticipate that perhaps we can wrap up and finish by within an hour, hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes. But of course, I'm willing to stay on longer for additional questions as well. I will say up front, I may not be able to answer every question here in today's session. And to the extent that I'm not able to do that, I will follow up very quickly with those questions. And if that is the case, I should probably, I guess, coordinate that with both you, Marina, and Ingrid for any follow-up questions as well. So again, I'm located here in southeast Wisconsin. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day. It's about 40 degrees. We had a bunch of snow yesterday, and it's all melted. It's been that kind of a mild winter on our end, and I trust and hope you're having a great day as well. What I'm going to do is walk through a brief PowerPoint presentation. Then I'm going to go into my Pivot demo account. I will not actually be working off your live Pivot occurrence. I would like to very quickly, even though the session may be focused more towards the administrative side of things, and we'll talk about that. I do want to real quickly maybe walk through some functionality from the end user perspective, just to sort of tie that in with some of the administrative functionalities that you may be working with and how they impact your end users as well. Okay. I do also want to indicate, I know there were some questions that were forwarded to me prior to the beginning of the session. I will attempt to address those as we go through this session. I do want to say up front, if you have a representative there from, I believe, the ASRC or the Advanced Science Research Center.
Yeah, there's two of us here.
Okay, you had a question regarding your Pivot usage, and what I wanted to let you know is your usage stats should now be working for you there at the ASRC, or at least for 2016. There was a little bit of a glitch on our end, and I want to let you know that we fixed that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, that should be working for you now, and you should have data for 2015 in the next few days, probably early next week after the holiday. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so let's direct our attention. You should hopefully be seeing in your view the landing page. It says ProQuest Start here. It's a very brief PowerPoint, and as we move through the PowerPoint, in terms of our agenda and what we're going to talk about. You know, just a quick overview. I don't know to what extent many of you have worked with Pivot. You may have worked a little bit. You may have worked extensively. Some of this may be a refresher for you, but hopefully we can cover some things that might be new to you as well. Obviously, you know, the core challenge and the rationale behind Pivot is to find funding for a given research project and to match those research funding opportunities with the right faculty or staff member at your institution. A quick overview, you know, Pivot was developed for research at universities, and in terms of the overall dollar amounts and funding opportunities, there are currently, and it's growing, it's literally updated daily and weekly. There are 33,000 plus records, and that's over $34 billion in potential funding, and that represents both public and private sponsors. Scholarly profiles. Scholarly profiles are very important within the context of Pivot. There are currently over 3.3 million, and this is growing, of course, as more people use Pivot. The profiles themselves are harvested from university websites, and they can be searched and claimed by individuals and edited. And individuals can even create their own individual profile in Pivot. We'll talk a little bit about that. And you as an administrator, you can obviously create profiles for faculty representing those various schools and units on the campus that you represent as well, okay? But the Pivot profile, now you can search in Pivot without not having a profile, but the profile is critical because the funding is based on the profile criteria, research interests, topics, subjects, and so forth. So, you know, having a profile is very critical for, I would say, the best, most optimal, successful use of Pivot. In terms of connecting researchers to those funding opportunities, you know, the activity covers locations all over the world, opportunities from over 89 countries. Those include national and international sponsors. Again, those can be public and private sponsors representing anything from academic institutions to government agencies, nonprofits, and so forth, okay? Covering a wide variety of activities, grants, fellowships, travel, training, and so forth, okay? It's primarily designed for advanced academic and professional work, typically not undergrads, but, you know, graduate students could get some value from Pivot as well. Now, once the deadline has passed for an opportunity, that will not be offered again. The record is typically purged from the database. Now, I know some of the feedback I received prior to the session, some folks had indicated that they would like to see the purging of past deadline records or opportunities sort of purged from the database a little more quickly. So I made a note of that, and I passed that along to our program management folks as well. Okay. And those funding ops are manually reviewed. We have a team of editors here in Pivot, so they manually review those funding ops for the creation of the best possible keyword matchups for individuals. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail. This is just a selection of covered sponsors. And by the way, I'm more than happy to provide a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, and I am recording the session here today. So if there's anybody who maybe was not able to make this, considering the date and the timing, I can send the WebEx URL link for this recording to either Marina, you, or Ingrid, and you feel free to share that with your colleagues. Okay. Now, in terms of scholarly profiles, again, as I indicated, over 3.3 million and growing, over 200 disciplines, 75 countries, over 2,100 plus universities are represented in Pivot. And that's something to think about as well. Now, you may be, as an administrator, primarily searching for opportunities, funding opportunities for those individuals there, you know, on campus, part of the SUNY campus network. But there's certainly, Pivot provides the opportunity to link out and connect with other individuals all around the world who may have similar or the same research interests and so forth. So there's that possibility as well. In terms of accessing Pivot, this is the URL. Many of you are probably very familiar with in terms of how you access Pivot there on campus, across the campus. Again, I'll be working in a demo site today, but it will look very similar to what you work with as well. In terms of setting up access to Pivot, creating a profile and claiming it, individuals, when they do that, they'll get a confirmation email from us on our end. The only caveat is, you know, the email address that you use when you set up sort of your Pivot profile, if you will, it must match the sort of the email domain for the school. Okay, so please use your SUNY-related email address, or encourage those, say, faculty members and so forth that you work with to remember that SUNY email, not a private email like a, I don't know, like a Gmail account or something like that. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of claiming the Pivot profile, I want to show this because I actually already have a profile, so I won't be able to claim it here. But when you first set up the profile, and many of you may have done this for yourself, you may have done it for individuals that you work with as an administrator, but under your name, when you log into Pivot, there will be this option to claim the profile. So one of the first things you're going to want to do, and you're going to want to encourage others to do, is claim that profile. And when they do that, again, that generates that email to our Pivot advisors. They'll make sure they'll set up the profile, send you a confirmation in an email with a link to sort of start the process. Okay. And again, once you claim the profile, this is sort of what you'll see when you sign in. And you can see the result there. There'll be like sort of a shell of a profile, if you will, with the information you provided. And then you could say, well, that's me, and click on the This Is Me option. Or if it's not you, you can search for you. And we'll walk through in just a little bit here about how you could sort of add more information to your profile, edit your profile. The caveat I'm going to suggest when it comes to profiles, creating them, working with them, if you're an administrator and you're creating profiles for your colleagues, the more information you put in the profile, the better. We'll see the fields where you can input information. But the reason that's very important is because, remember, when we're matching up funding opportunities to profiles, we're looking at those fields, for example, in the Pivot profile. You know, keyword subject areas, areas of interest, research, and so forth. All that information is vitally important Okay? So better to have a more extensive profile than sort of just a shell of a profile. Okay? It's going to bring more funding opportunities to your attention. Okay? These are just some FAQs. You don't necessarily need to write this down. Again, I'll send a link to the recording and you'll have that information. Talking about support in our LibGuides, which are great supplementary resources. Pivot YouTube channel. We have, and some of you may have watched these because I sent these out much earlier, I believe, to Marina to share with you. The 33 training videos that we have covering Pivot. That's a lot of information there, all accessible through that LibGuide.
Paul, may I interrupt? It's all available, all links available on our website. When you go to researchfoundation.org, you go to research and a word for pre-proposal support, and you will see all related links that relate to the searchable database, including Pivot.
Right. Okay.
You can post the recording in the.
And we will post this presentation right there too.
Absolutely great. So let me go ahead and bring up my demo site. The screen's going to flicker just momentarily. You should hopefully be seeing in your view where it says Pivot Demo. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is my demo account again. You can see that very clearly identified. So I don't have access to all of the functionality here in the demo account, but at least the main functionality here. And we're going to talk about, this home page as we first hit this. You can see that first of all, whenever there's any announcements regarding Pivot, okay, you'll see announcements under here. There'll be like a little flag telling you like there's 2 or 3 announcements. If you click on that, this will just show you any updates related to Pivot. If we've added new fields, if we sort of tweaked the interface, all that information is always announced here, so do please pay attention to that. As we're looking at my name, just real quickly here, this is where I can add and update my profile. We'll come back to this and talk about this as well. Okay? But as we hit the home page, now again, from the end user perspective, you yourself may have a personal Pivot account. You may be responsible for setting up Pivot profiles for your colleagues. But from the things that you do as an administrator on the admin back end will impact how this looks and how it functions for your users. Okay? So for example, on the left-hand side here, as we look at like active and tracked ops and our saved searches and so forth, what does all of this mean? Well, active, the most important thing from my perspective here are the tracked ops. Okay, these are the opportunities. When I say op, I mean opportunities. I don't want to use jargon and confuse anybody. But when I'm talking about funding ops, I mean funding opportunities. These are the opportunities that a user will track. These are the things that they are interested in. These are the things that perhaps they are interested in applying for, winning, and getting those funds. Okay, so these are the most important. The active ops, how I would describe this, and a good way to relay this to your users is these are sort of those secondary opportunities, if you will, things that may be interesting to you, but maybe they're not of the highest priority at this point. So I consider those the secondary items of interest. You, of course, can save as many searches as you want. And so you can go in, and when you save a search, I'll just click on that real quickly, you can save them by subject area. You can see your saved search alerts and so forth. This will allow you to automatically come in here and rerun your searches, okay, day to day if you want. That way, if you've created sort of an elaborate search string, when we talk about searching, you don't have to remember, how did I construct that incredible search string that gave me those incredible search results, Make it easy for yourself. Save the search, come back and automatically run it, and whenever there's new search results related to your search, you'll see that identified right here. Now, on my demo site, we're not going to see that populated, but you would see the number of new results, and then you could choose to work with those, and we'll come back and talk about the options in a little bit.
Paul, how often is your database updated?
The database itself is literally updated on a daily and weekly basis, okay? Now, even though that is the case, it doesn't necessarily mean, depending on the things that you're tracking or the saved searches you've created, you may or may not see results based on what was added into the database, of course, okay? But as a general rule, it's added on a daily and even weekly basis, okay? I'm going to go back to the home page here. You can also share opportunities. Now, I haven't done that here, but you know the concept of sharing opportunities is very important. As an individual end user, you know, if I'm working, say, within my department, if I'm collaborating with somebody, we collaborate on projects or whatever, I can share opportunities with that individual very quickly. As an administrator, you will have the opportunity to not only go in and sort of create a profile for users and claim that profile for your users, but you can actually share, you know, if you're doing searches and creating searches and saving those searches, and then based on the search results that you receive, you can share those search results with the end users that you're working on behalf as well through the share function. We'll talk about that as well. That is typically under the options category. The advisor, there was a question prior to the session. Someone wanted to know if I would make sure I discuss the advisor feature and the curated function as well. The advisor function, and this is, you know, not to beat it into the ground, this is why actually having a pivot profile is so important, because you only see the advisor option if you have a claimed profile, okay? If you have not created a profile, again, you could search in Pivot, but you won't see this advisor option. And what the advisor option does is, again, based on your profile and the criteria that you created put in the profile, whether directly as a user or indirectly you as a Pivot administrator creating the profile for a user, the research interests you specify there, subjects, keywords, etc., the system will automatically bring to your attention opportunities that match the criteria that you are interested in. That's what the advisor does. So again, that just sort of points out the importance of setting up that claimed Pivot profile. Now, the curated option right here, it's a little bit different than the advisor option. This is a Pivot admin functionality only. Okay, so if you serve as an administrator based on, you know, where you're at on campus and what unit you work with and so forth, you will see that, or should see, I hope, the curated option in your view. Okay, the curated option is impacted by what you do. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the Pivot administrator functionalities. Okay, these are curated options that you can then share with your colleagues. You can create lists. But let me scroll down just a little bit here, just as an example. You know, you can create lists by subject areas depending on what the subject area is, and then you can take this list and you can share it with users who might be interested in, say, for example, with, I don't know, cardio-related funding, or, you know, food sciences or something like that. Okay? All right. And again, pretty informal here today, so if you have questions or comments, feel free to share those. Let's talk about searching for funding, and then we'll talk about profiles real quick. Now, obviously, you have the capability here. The default when you first land into Pivot is to search funding. You can see a drop-down here where I'm in funding, but I can search profiles. And, you know, I know that, and I include myself in this as well, we've all been sort of Googleized, if you will. So you could just do a basic sort of keyword search, just plop in those keywords and away you go. You can use proximity searching in Pivot too, okay? You know, wind with 15 energy, you know, wind energy within 15 words or something like that. You can use, put your search terms in quotes to search for a direct phrase, or you can just plug in keywords. That's fine, okay? I prefer, and, you know, there's neither a right or wrong to this, but in terms of best practices, I like to go directly to the funding page by clicking on the funding tab in the upper left-hand corner. And several things to point out, okay? I have some groups that I set up as examples for topics and subject areas. Editor picks. These are set up by the Pivot editors here on our side, things that might be of interest. And most popular within your grouping, you'll see, you know, what are people searching for and what are the most popular subject areas and so forth. There's a nice brief video tutorial, which I am not going to launch right now. That links to one of the video tutorials of those 33 that are available through the LibGuide, okay? You will also see updates here, you know, what are the sort of current hot topics, if you will, in the research world. You can see right now there's information related to the Zika virus and outbreak as well, very timely. But what I like to do is I like to go into the advanced search. You can also search by sponsor. The default is the text search, but if you search by sponsor, you can search for a specific organization, either all of them, only U.S. federal government, or non-federal government as well. When I go into the advanced search, okay, let's load that real quick here. We can really create a very elaborate search here. And this can be very important, especially for those of you who are administrators who may be doing a lot of different types of searches for a lot of different folks with a lot of different research interests, okay? If you want to, now you can plunk in your keywords and away you go, but then you have to sort of go through a large number of search results, some of which may not be the most relevant, okay? And this way, using the advanced search, you can sort of focus and narrow that search from the very beginning. Less search results to go through and cull, okay? Now, you will see when you do this as an end user, the citizenship or residency filters that you set up on the admin backend. You can see here in my demo site, I have Canada or the European Union or unrestricted. But you can choose, even as a user, even if you as an admin set up some citizenship or residency filters as a user, I can choose to go in there and sort of click that off, okay? Funding opportunities, you can see we have the option for matching all of the fields or any of the fields. That's pretty much a straightforward Boolean option, okay? All of the fields would be the AND Boolean operator. Any of the fields would be the OR option. You know, I'm just curious. I mean, I don't want to take up a lot of time here, but I'm just curious for the group in terms of querying the group when you search. Do you typically use the keyword or do you utilize the advanced search? Yeah. Because one of the questions I had prior to this was keyword searching, to talk a little bit about keyword searching. When you do keyword searching using the basic or simple search, the default on the home page, okay, what you're simply searching there when it comes to keywords is sort of like the fields of like accession number, citizenship, state. It's basically all keywords. What else? Eligibility, funding type, requirements, sponsor IDs, sponsor names, sponsor reference number, sponsor type, activity location, title, and amounts, and so forth. Here in the advanced search, you have a keyword search option, but it's only specific to that field. So there's a difference there. Okay, we mean different things when we're talking about keyword searching in the simple or basic search and keyword searching when we're talking in the advanced search. Okay. The default is all fields, but you can see the option to search just abstracts or sponsor IDs, CFDA numbers, and so forth. Now, I'll admit, I'm not the world's best searcher when it comes to constructing searches, but I'm going to do just sort of a basic advanced search here. Let's search for we'll say wind energy, and again, I'm going to look for, let's see here. I'm going to try sponsor. Let's see how this goes. I may have to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to say EU for European Union and DOE for Department of Energy. And, of course, depending on how elaborate a search you want to construct, you can add additional fields. Dollar amounts, if you click on that, you have the option in the drop-down. Do you want less than a certain dollar amount, more than? I'm going to say more than. It's always good to have more money, I think. I'll put in, let's just say, $999,000. And notice how I put that in without any commas or any sort of like dollar signs or signs representing euros or anything like that. If you have questions on currency, if you click on this little option here, it will remind you when you're entering dollar amounts, use it without sort of like the dollar sign or any sort of punctuation. Okay. When it comes to currency conversions, you can see they are updated on a weekly basis. And that can be important because sometimes we do have currency fluctuations. Deadlines. You know, do you have a specific deadline or do you not care? You can input those options. Do you want those Funding opportunities have optional deadlines or no deadlines at all. You can input using the counters. Do you want limited submission only, or just limited submission? That basically, in a nutshell, means from a specific institution, say SUNY there, that one submission from a university, that could be very important, because you might have multiple individuals across campus and various campus units who might be interested in the same opportunity, but limited submission means that only one individual from your institution can qualify for those funds or money. Okay. Activity location. What region of the world are you primarily interested in? North America, the United States, Latin America, something in the European Union. When we talk about sub-entities and super-entities, that can be a little bit confusing as well. When I think of super-entities, I think of things in terms of applying it to like countries or nations. A super-entity would be like the United States. A sub-entity could be like an individual state within the United States. But it doesn't just apply to countries. It can apply to organizations. A super-entity might be, for example, like the National Institutes of Health. But within the umbrella organization of the National Institutes of Health, there might be various departments. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but that various department might be like a sub-entity. And maybe the grant or the funding opportunity is being put out in the language by the sub-entity, even though it's part of, say, the National Institutes of Health. So sometimes you want to make sure that you select one or the other, depending on what type of opportunities you're searching for, or maybe both. Okay. For citizenship requirements, again, some opportunities are limited by citizenship requirements, U.S. only or Canada only, and so forth. Funding types. There are a host of funding types depending on who's searching and maybe on whose behalf you are searching for. By going to funding types, you can see there are funding for a dissertation or a thesis or equipment or meeting or conferences or seminars or postdoctoral, curriculum development, etc. You can just sort of scroll through and see what's available. The keyword. Again, as I indicated, there's a difference here in keyword searching in the advanced search. Keyword here is only going to match the keyword field in the record, where for the simple search, the keyword will look for the occurrence of the keyword throughout the whole record. Okay. Applicant type. Who is are you representing an academic institution, government, new faculty member, new investigator, nonprofits, individuals with disabilities, and so forth. Okay. Then, of course, sponsor type as well. Now, you may not use all of these fields. There's quite a large number of them in terms of searching. But, if you have found in the past that you do your searches and you're getting just a huge number of search results and you're spending a lot of time winnowing those search results, I encourage you to take a look at this and maybe utilize this. And also, even though you may have utilized this, you may notice from time to time in your search results that maybe you're getting some funding opportunities and you're a little confused why those are showing up in your search results, because they don't seem to be fitting your parameters. Okay? You always have the option for the exclude. Take a look at those search results that maybe don't match, and then plug in some information related to them. It could be like a citizenship or residency issue or a funding type issue. That will exclude. Okay? Let me go ahead and just execute this search real quick. And while I'm doing that, I'll take a moment. I'll catch my breath here, see what I get. I may have to tweak my search. Okay, I don't. I got 3 search results. Are there any questions before I jump into more detail here in these funding ops? Any questions at all?
Yeah, just give us
Is there a way just to get rid of that view on the bottom?
the update that you have on the screen.
Is that their computer or ours?
I don't know.
Right there.
Ours.
Let me, what do we need to get rid of? I'm sorry.
We're good.
Okay. Maybe something popped up on the screen. I don't know. Okay. I didn't see anything on my end. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, you'll notice as I've done my search here, one, we can see the search string I created. And I can refine this search. I can go back and modify it. I can save the search. This is where we saw those. I showed you the saved searches earlier. If I want to save this real quickly, I'm just going to click Save Search. I can call this search. That will show up on my home page now under the Save Searches. So I can go back and automatically run that whenever I want. If we look at the search results on the left-hand side, obviously we have some facets here where we can, again, continue narrowing the search. Now, I don't have a lot of search results here, obviously, as my example. I just have 3. But if you have a larger set, you can look at the funding types, sponsor, applicant types, and keywords and start narrowing it that way as well. Any information relevant, it's a magnifying glass icon. It might be a little small on your end. If you click on that, it's going to give you abstract information and eligibility requirements. You can see that most of the funding ops that you'll retrieve or users will retrieve will show a deadline, but not always, and will typically show a dollar amount, but not always. Sometimes you have to go into the full record, okay? For example, if I want to see this record, and before I do that, I should point out that you have the option to sort these. The default is by relevancy ranking, but you can sort by title or sponsor name or by deadline. This can be very important. Typically, when it comes to deadlines, you probably want to sort by soonest to latest so you don't miss any opportunities if the time runs out. I'm going to open up this individual opportunity. And as we look at the full record here, which hopefully you're seeing, I know there can sometimes be a slight delay in the WebEx, so if I'm ever speaking to something and you're not seeing it there, give me a shout and let me know. This is going to give me the full record. I can link out to the website. I can see who the complete sponsors are, the dollar amounts. If I scroll to the bottom, as an administrator, you have the option to add notes. Many of you may already do this. We'll talk about in the administrative feature how you can add notes to the opportunity. If there's something important you want to put in, please call me at this number if you have a question about this or something like that. You can plug in the language that you want to see here as an example. If we scroll back up as a user, I can now track the op. Simply click on the track option. That's going to show this information and information related to this subject area. I will now be tracking from my home page. If this was a secondary interest, I could maybe put it into active. Maybe I want to share this with a colleague in my department. I'm going to click Share, and now I can type in a name here. Now, for individuals who are part of your campus-wide community, when you start typing in their name, which will be their email address, it will automatically pop up. If you don't see it here because I'm on my demo site, or if somebody does not have a Pivot profile yet created, you can still type in their email address. I'll put in my email address. You see how my name popped up there, but it's not under this email address. You can include a little message, something like, hey, I was searching on this and I thought you might find this interesting or something like that. If you have multiple recipients, you can choose to let them know that you send it to everybody, but you don't have to do that. And then you would send it. And I just shared this opportunity with myself. This will show up in my email, and then I can link into it. There'll be a URL link, and I can link and view it as well. This is a great way as an administrator, if you come across something and you want to just send it out to an individual real quickly, you can do that. Or to a group if you've set up a group. Okay. You can also see from the funding opportunities, because if you have a profile, potential collaborators. There's over 500 people from outside institutions that are also interested in this. Okay. What's the value in that? Well, you can make connections. We all know research is not, it's not an isolated functionality anymore. It's very much a shared collaborative process. If you want to connect with individuals who are also interested in this type of research, you can do that, and you can review their profiles and so forth. across various institutions, not just your own institution. If you're a junior faculty member, and maybe you want to know, what are sort of senior faculty members and senior researchers, what are they pursuing in my subject area in the profession? You could take a peek at that as well. Okay.
I have a question about this.
Yes.
So the potential collaborators that show up when we do this are in our own institutions. So right now we have 20-plus different institutions that are using this. Right. So if I'm at the ASRC and I try to find collaborators, it's just going to show the people in the ASRC. Any outside collaborators is going to show the entire world.
Right.
Is there any way to have a middle column where I can find collaborators in my own institution, and then I can find collaborators within all of CUNY, and then on top of that, outside to the rest of the world? So if I want to find collaborators at John Jay, I'll be able to more easier.
Right. First, on my demo side, I don't have anybody else at ProQuest, so I'm defaulting to the outside. That's why we're seeing that. Otherwise, when you search, you would go into your internal occurrence. Okay. The workaround right now, I believe, would be if you go in and search profiles, I believe you can search by institution. If you search City University of New York, I think that would allow you to tap into the other units across your campus that are also using Pivot as well, but I'll follow up on that, okay? But also I'm making a note here that as a suggestion that maybe you should have that middle tier option as you suggest.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was able to group them by college. Like for Brooklyn College, I started grouping some fields and some sciences, but
right.
I wasn't able to group them by CUNY, like, to combine all different colleges and create CUNY-wide groups.
Right, and you can create a group that way. So if you're the administrator, say at your specific unit, if you will, you can go in and create a group that way. That's the way to do it, too. And then you'd be searching by group. Okay. But I still will pass forward that recommendation. That would, if you just had it here on this page, it would eliminate a few steps. That's a good point. All right. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, real quickly, let's transfer from funding, and let's go into profiles. Okay. Now, I don't have a whole lot of profiles set up on my demo site, but if you were searching, for example, if I wanted to create a profile, or if I have a profile, or if you're going to create a profile as an administrator, we'll talk about that in just a second. But just to show you my profile, if I access it here under my name, my profile, okay, this is a very basic profile. I didn't use all the fields. But a user, and you'll notice, by the way, it's going to show me in my profile the number of funding opportunities that are matching my criteria and also my specific unit or department. Okay. This is an old email address. This is when I used to work in academia. I used to actually be a working librarian. That's an old email address. But if I want to edit my profile, and as I indicated, the more information you have in the profile, the better. Okay. And if you want to edit that profile, or if you're editing a profile on behalf of a colleague, click on Edit. And then you could choose to add links. This could be anything from uploading a file. Do you have a web page or a blog that you maintain? Have you published publications that have URL addresses? You could add a link or upload a file. Do you have an ORCID ID? That can be very important as well. We now sync with that. You can add that in. Your expertise as a researcher. Go ahead and cancel that. You must cancel out one before you can go into the other. You want to grab an ORCID ID. You can do that as well. Affiliations. Where did you go to school? What degrees do you have? What are your past affiliations? Where have you previously worked? Your education history. You can add keywords. Again, this is, we talked about those opportunities that are brought to your attention on your home page under the curated option. Those would be very important here, depending on the keywords that you choose to use. Click Add, what's your research area? You can type in a subject area, but you can see there's some subject areas provided for you as well. So I encourage, once an individual sets up a pivot profile, once you create a pivot profile for an individual, it's not done. The profile is not a static process. As you write, as you publish, as you develop your research interests further, users should come back here periodically and update the profile information. The more information, the better. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and exit that. Jump back into the occurrence here. And once you're done editing, you'll click this little box close, and then your edits are incorporated immediately. And then we'll reload your profile. Now, in terms of searching profiles, I'm going to transition here from an end user into an administrator. Okay. Let me log out of my individual account. And now I'm going to pretend I'm an administrator. So I'm going to sign in. Again, this is my demo account. So what I'm doing here is not really impacting anything in the live or the real world. Okay. I'm going to sign in as this individual, Auburn University. And so now I'm Mark, although I'm not really Mark. And you can see there's some announcements here. Okay. Now here at Auburn University, I'm the administrator, and once I'm signed in, you can now see the admin option in my view. Okay. So what can I do here as an admin? Well, one, you can place opportunities on another user's homepage. You want to bring something to somebody's attention. What you can do is go into opportunities that maybe you can see I have some tracked ops right here. If I want to go into this and I want to share it, so I'm going to click on the options here and just click share. Again, I would simply type in the recipient's name. It will automatically come in if they have a pivot profile. If they don't, I would type their entire email address. And then I would just share it, okay, and send it to them. It's that easy. Shout opportunities for individuals. Also under the options here, you have the capability to add tags if you want to work with tags. Maybe you don't want to work with like official subject headings. You want to make it easier. You can just sort of put a word or a phrase there. You can add a deadline reminder for an opportunity for an individual, letting them know that, hey, you might want to address this or take a look at this before it expires. You can see who you've shared with and who else might be interested as well. Okay. If I want to see who I've shared with, just click on that, and it will tell me, in this case, 0. Okay. Now, in terms of claiming a pivot profile on behalf of a pivot user, the best way to do that is probably when the advisor area is activated, you would go to the admin area. And under the admin area, and this is the dashboard, okay? This is my sample university. Obviously, your dashboard at your individual unit is going to look a little bit different. Someone had asked prior to the session, how much customization can you do regarding the dashboard? And the answer is, unfortunately, not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of customization here at this point in terms of how the graph looks and what you see. Okay? But I made a note of that, and I forwarded it to the product folks to see if that's something we can do in the future. On the dashboard, you could show your labels and this sort of thing. But speaking of claiming a pivot profile on behalf, you may have done this before, but maybe some of you have not. When you navigate to the admin area, select the reports option. A lot of functionality here under the reports option. Select your user accounts. Scroll down under your accounts, user accounts. And as your user accounts load, you can search for a last name. You can search an individual. You'll see the faculty located here. And by the way, if you ever need to make an individual also an admin, there's a very easy way to do that. Just click on the Make Admin. If you need to reset their password, they've contacted you, and they've said, you know, I cannot remember for the life of me my password, just look them up, find their name, and send them an email. This is a reset password email. It'll have a link in there to do that. If you want to claim a profile on behalf of an individual, when you search for your users, if you see claim profile, that means that individual has not claimed their profile. Okay? So what you would do is click on this, and you'd select the profile, search it, and you can send it. Now, it's not going to find any matches here on my demo account. That's why we're seeing that. What you need to understand, when the profile is claimed on behalf of a user, it can take anywhere from up to about a week to a week and a half. That won't happen instantaneously. Okay? So that's how you would claim the profile for an individual or even send them an opportunity. Are there any questions on that?
How do you purge people that are no longer with the institution?
Can you repeat that, please? I didn't quite get the whole question. It broke up a little bit.
How do you delete individuals that are no longer a part of your institution?
How do you delete an individual? You would go in, let me see here. Oh, that's a good question. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure. You can create a new account right here. You can export your users into an Excel spreadsheet. I believe it's under reports. You know, I'll have to double check. It just might go inactive. I don't see it directly.
I'm sorry, Paul. The reason I'm asking is because I've seen student accounts on this, and I would like to delete them from like our institution profile. Or I've seen employees that are no longer with our institution.
Okay. Both student accounts and employees no longer employed.
Correct.
I will research that and send a full detailed answer to both Marina and Ingrid to share. Okay. All right. Good question.
I have a question about claiming profiles. On occasion, we have a faculty member that has like 3 options to claim their profile, and sometimes 2 of them are them, or even all 3, because they had appointments at other institutions, or sometimes they have an appointment at the college, but also at the graduate center, and maybe their previous appointment at another institution. There might be information that's relevant in all of those profiles, but we can only claim 1. Is that right?
That's correct.
So is there anything that we should do with those other profiles that are popping up, or?
As a suggestion, because you can only claim the 1, but you still have, you have the capability to maybe view all 3, okay? What I would suggest is focusing on the most recent. When you go in and review, in this instance, let's say there's 3. Go in and review the other 2. Pay attention to the keywords that they have indicated that are important to them in terms of subject area and expertise and so forth. Look at the information they provided on the 2 other profiles. And because you can go in and you can modify the profile on their behalf, you might want to add those additional subject areas and see if, in terms of like their history of their institutional affiliation, if it needs to be updated and so forth. You can either do that on your own right there, or you can contact them vis-a-vis their email and suggest that they go in and do that.
Okay.
Yep. Moving along, just looking at the time here so we don't keep anybody too late. Adding saved searches and curated lists to your website as an admin. If we go to the home page, remember I'm signed in as an admin now. And we take a look at our saved searches. We have some sample saved searches here. These are searches that maybe you've done as an admin, you've saved them, and now you want to add them to your website. That'll load in just a second. Okay, there they are. Okay. You can click the options menu, and then you can choose to share. And what I would suggest that you do is send the email to yourself. Type in your own email here, okay, and send it. And when you do that, that's going to send you an email that will contain a hyperlink. Within the body of that email, you can capture that hyperlink and simply post the URL from the web browser to your actual site. Okay, it will always bring updated results. That's one way to do it. Another way is to go into, say, the funding search, like an advanced search, do your search, create the search, and once you have the search results, click on Curated, which you'll have an option as an administrator. Again, that provides you a URL that you can host on your actual homepage site as well. Okay. Some of the additional functionalities from the admin perspective, I think maybe some of the most important ones. If you wanted to add like an internal deadline or notes to your funding ops, again, if you open up any note or any op, at the bottom, you can click on the note options and just type in or edit a note. You have that functionality as an administrator. Okay. Has anybody done that? Do you use the deadlines and note options very much? I'm just curious from the groups.
Well, I've done it, but they're basically to myself.
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of functionality here under the admin, but I think you'll find that most of the functionality will be under your reports. If you want to see your usage and activity stats, or if you want to see, for example, profiles, activity stats, if you need to sort of, into aggregate, or if you do it every so months, whatever, you can sort of track the usage within Pivot. You have the option to also, let's go back, you can see the number of profile claims, the history of that. This is a good indication of, how are people working with Pivot? Are they claiming their profiles and so forth? More use, the better. You want to get the ROI, the return for your dollars. Your alert history. You're setting up funding alerts and you're sending them out to individuals. Are they actually responding to the alerts and the funding opportunities that you're sending for them? Okay. How many people have received the alert? 4. And you see how it's broken out, looks like weekly for the reports. You can view it by an opportunity, or you can view it by the individuals at your specific unit. And you can see, for example, you've sent 6 opportunities to this individual. How did they work with them? You can click on that and see, okay? Going by opportunity here as well. Because, of course, you want to make sure that as you're sending out the funding opportunities to individuals, that they're actually working with them and not just letting them sit there as well. Okay. Under institutional settings, I don't know if you would work with these too much. This will just impact sort of the look and feel of your site at your institutions in terms of how messages are displayed and so forth. If you work with groups and you've set up groups, you can see the personal groups here. This makes it easy to send out opportunities. The groups, you can send them out en masse and so forth. You also, education and training is just links out to like our webinars and training, that sort of things. You can even create a search widget in Pivot as well. But I think you'll find under most circumstances, one, you'll be working with the dashboard and the reports feature. Ops you've shared, funding searches, user accounts. Do you want to create a new account? You can see brand new accounts within the last 90 days and whether or not the individuals actually claim their profiles. And then if you notice that people are not claiming their profiles, you may want to claim the profile on their behalf. So any additional questions for me? I know there's a lot of functionality here in the admin, and so I just want to sort of open it up to the group, indicating how you've worked with the admin in the past and any sort of questions or challenges or issues you might have experienced.
I have a question.
Yes.
You just
You just mentioned that you want to make sure that the people that you're sending the opportunities to are working with them. How are you able to tell? I know that you know that you send the opportunities to them, but how are you able to know that they're working?
If you go in and you view their profile, let's see here. I'm going to go into Auburn University, just as an example, and we're going to see how it's broken out. You can see the breakout under various options. If I went into, say, like, I don't know, the library here, I can view the profiles. And here's the profiles of the individuals in that specific unit. Maybe, you know, these are the people that I work for and on behalf. If I want to go into their profile at this point, I can select it. And you can see the funding opportunities that have been provided right here. And from here, you can see, did they choose to track it? Did they set it to active? You know, in this instance, in my demo site, you can see they haven't done anything with it. Did they share it with anybody? Is it curated? Is it showing up on their home page? You can see what they've done. That's one way.
Can you see which individuals have applied for funding through their like, alerts?
Let's see. I think under the admin, because I haven't applied for any, I don't see it in my demo account. That's why we don't see that. But I think under the reports, let's see, I think under the activities, let's see, I've shared. You can view it by person. I think you can find that information here in a live account. Ops you've shared. Then I think when you go into their account, you can see whether or not they've applied for it. But I'll double check. Good question. Okay. Any other questions?
Is it possible to create a Pivot account for a faculty member at your institution, claim their profile for them, and start sending them funding opportunities without any action on their part, without them, you know, kind of, you know, certifying in those emails that pop up to them that they actually do want to receive these alerts? There's some faculty that ask, oh, can you send me funding opportunities that, you know, that are of interest to me, but, you know, they either don't have the time or can't sit down to, you know, get started. So can we get them started without any action on their part?
You can go in and you can create the profile for them as an admin and fill it out with, I guess, whatever information you have at your disposal when you're filling out that profile page. Maybe you can capture some information from them based on like their department web page or something like that. You can input that information. So you set up the profile, and then you can go in and you could claim the profile for them. And then you can search and send them opportunities. Yes, you can do all of that. Now, eventually, if they want sort of their profile to be the most up-to-date with the most current information, you know, then they would have to take the onus to go in and, like, edit the profile and add additional information. So, yes.
Well, Marina, I guess I already asked you the question. Where are you getting the information for grant statistics and the publication stats? Because I was trying to reconcile, and I'm not sure that I can match what you're reporting on this dashboard.
Okay. So can you repeat that again, please? You're trying.
The actual grant volume that you report on the dashboard, like this particular dashboard, where the grant information is coming from?
Where is the grant information that's represented here in the dashboard coming from?
Yeah.
I believe that the dashboard information is showing you the number of grants, the information that people within your universe have chosen to work with and what's been made available to them. So it's based on, you know, if I'm an individual user here in Pivot, and I search and I track my ops, and then I apply for an op, and I'm successful, and I'm working with that, and I get the grant money, that's what we're seeing here in the dashboard. Is that what you're asking?
Okay, so that's what it is. So you are only talking about, you're only collecting data from, I guess, respective federal websites and other websites for the individuals who created profiles in Pivot?
Right. I mean, to build a profile, which is separate here from the dashboard, what we're looking at, to build a profile, if you're doing that completely without any input from like a faculty member, the best way, one is to go in and search on that individual at your institution and see if we have created a shell. Because what we do, we may have created a shell for that individual. And what we do is we go out and basically sort of mine university websites and departmental pages. We'll create a shell profile for an individual that will have just basic information that they've provided maybe on a web page. And that's all in Pivot on the back end, on our end, okay? And so we will go in and set up what I'm going to call a shell profile for the individual. So when you search on that individual's name, you may not actually have to create the profile from scratch. There might be a shell profile there that you can claim, and then you could choose to add additional information into the profiles if you want to. Now, even though we mine websites and departmental web pages all around the world, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to capture everybody, okay? So that's where you may have to go in and actually create the whole profile from scratch. And I could send you, I think I had that information in the PowerPoint slide or the presentation, but if not, I can send it to you specifically. What sources do we here on our end in ProQuest, how do we go about sort of scouring the web and grabbing this information? I'll send that to you, how we do that. But I think that was included in that PowerPoint presentation. Any additional questions for me? Has anybody had any difficulty here as an admin, say specifically under the reports feature in terms of using these options where something didn't give you the result that you anticipated, or something didn't work in the way that you wanted to? Or what are the pain points here from an admin point of view working with the admin tab, I guess is what I'm asking. And if you can't think of any right now, I mean, I share my email address. Marina, you have it. Ingrid, you have it. Feel free to share it with the group. You can pass that along to me. I can address that offline in a separate email. All right, I'm just looking at the clock. We've been connected just about an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm certainly welcome to entertain additional questions for folks. So are there any additional questions before we wrap up and go into our holiday weekend? No?
Nope.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much, everybody, for connecting on Good Friday. Again, I appreciate that very much. We covered a lot of material, but if you do have additional questions, I often think of my best questions about 20 minutes after a webinar is over. Feel free to connect with me. That's paul.webb, W-E-B-B, at ProQuest.com. I've also written down some of the questions that were asked here during the session that I couldn't address directly. I will follow up early next week with both Marina and Ingrid, and they can share those with the group as well. Specifically, the question on deleting accounts, student accounts, and employees no longer employed, and also having that sort of mid-tier option to connect outside of your specific unit there in City University of New York as well, without having to set up groups. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend.
You too, Paul. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
was your pen, yeah.